and unto the Supreme Personality. And I'll also mention its translation so that it's everybody knows what it means. So first is offering the spiritual master. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Translation of that is, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes to the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatadesha Sarine. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Krishna, taking shelter at His lotus feet. Our obeisances unto you, O Master, servant of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. You're kindly spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya in the Western countries, which is full of voidism and impersonalism. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta. I offer my obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, unto Lord Nityananda, unto Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas, and all others of the lineage of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we'll begin with the discourse, and I typically like to stick to reading from books, so we'll do a little bit of that, and we'll make sure we go through about Lord Chaitanya and what he really taught and what he really gave. So I'll be reading from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Alright, so Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. A little bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the unique thing about this book is Srila Prabhupada wrote about Lord Chaitanya in 1968, and it says, dedicated to the sacred service of Srila Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who initiated the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world, McGill University, Canada, in 1896, the year of my birth, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. It's really cool because this book specifically mentions the word Canada in it, and it was sent the message of Lord Chaitanya was sent in 1896, which would be 127 years ago. So 127 years ago, the message of Lord Chaitanya came to Canada, and again, at a time where there's nobody from, when Lord Chaitanya appeared was in Bengal or in India, nobody was there of that background. So here we understand that Srila Prabhupada, who came and wrote this book, and then his predecessor teacher, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wanted this message of Lord Chaitanya to be well known around the world. So that was his intention. So that's something really neat about this book, is it's dedicated towards Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And has anybody been to McGill University here? Or Montreal? You've been to Montreal? You've been to Montreal too? Yeah. So the teachings of Lord Chaitanya was sent in a kind of a pamphlet in 1896 to McGill University in Montreal. As we know, McGill University is around more than 200 years old. So it's a very old university. So it's really unique that, the first book distribution that happened was in 1896. So that was really neat about spiritual books. So let's go over what Srila Prabhupada has written about Lord Chaitanya. And that's very much there in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, in this book, which talks about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Bhagavad Gita, so Bhagavad Gita is a book that is spoken by Lord Krishna, which gives all the philosophy of yoga. So that was spoken 5,200 years ago. So here it says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's last instruction, and Krishna is the Supreme Person, Supreme Personality of Godhead, last instruction that everyone should give up all engagements and render devotional service unto him. But after Krishna's disappearance, less intelligent people misunderstood him. They became contaminated with the Mayavada, or impersonal philosophy, which produced so many mental speculators that people forgot the actual position of the absolute truth and the living entity. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna himself, as Lord Chaitanya, so Krishna advents himself as Lord Chaitanya in this age, and Lord Chaitanya appeared in 1486. So that's 537 years ago. Lord Chaitanya appeared. So it's fairly recent in terms of if you look at Vedic history, it goes for thousands and millions of years, but 537 is quite recent. So the reason why Lord Chaitanya came was to teach the fallen souls of this material world how to approach Krishna. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches one should give up everything and be done with this material world and material attachment. But a pure devotee of Lord Krishna and one who follows the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya are one and the same. So here Prabhupada is saying that whether you follow Lord Chaitanya or follow Lord Krishna's philosophy, it's kind of one and the same, because they are one and the same. So Chaitanya's philosophy is that one should give up everything to worship God, Krishna. Krishna, as the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, spoke the same words, indicating himself as the Supreme Lord. So here we may see an aphorism that, or a sutra that Lord Chaitanya gives is Ekali Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabhabhritya, which means there's only one controller, Supreme Controller Krishna, and the rest are just servants. So, and Lord Chaitanya also mentions that Jive Swarupoi Krishna Nityada. So, what's really our identity? So, we identify as souls. So, we are souls, which is covered in a subtle body, which is covered with this physical body. So, the nature of that soul is to worship Krishna. So, therefore, Lord Chaitanya, to clarify the situation, reiterated Lord Krishna's message. One should not declare himself to be as good as Krishna, but to worship Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So again, going to that point. We make a great mistake if we think Lord Chaitanya is a conditioned soul. He is to be understood as the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of God, Sri Krishna himself. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the PhD of Bhakti Yoga, it is therefore said of Lord Chaitanya, Krishna is present in his 5 diverse manifestations. Unless one is situated in uncontaminated goodness, it is very difficult to understand Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Thus, in order to understand Lord Chaitanya, one has to follow the disciples of Lord Chaitanya, the 6 Goswamis, especially the path chalked out by Srila Jiva Goswami. The most astonishing fact is Lord Chaitanya, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna never displayed himself as Krishna. Whenever intelligent devotees detected that he was Lord Krishna and addressed him as Lord Krishna, he denied it. Indeed, he would place his hands over his ears, sometimes protesting that a human being should not be addressed as the Supreme Lord. Indirectly, he was teaching the Mayavadi philosophers that one should never falsely pose himself as the Supreme Lord and thereby misguide his followers. Nor should the followers be foolish enough to accept anyone and everyone as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So sometimes we see this is very common, that you see somebody from a yoga tradition or somebody from maybe a great guru or saint, and some people declare him as the supreme person or the supreme God. And in this way, Lord Chaitanya said that actually that's not true. It's Ekali Ishvara Krishna. There's only one supreme controller Krishna, and the rest are simply just his servants. So one should not, however, take Lord Chaitanya in 5 manifestations as ordinary human beings. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality Godhead himself, and one should test by consulting scriptures and by seeing the activities of the person in question. So these are kind of the 2 things. Is you have to see the evidence of where it's mentioned in the Vedic literatures. That's number 1. And number 2 is you have to see the evidence of the character of the person. So we have to see the character as well as the evidence from the Vedic literatures. So Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord. He came as a great devotee to teach all souls, all conditioned souls, how devotional service should be rendered. Conditioned souls who are interested in devotional service should follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya to learn how Krishna can be attained by devotional service. Thus, the Supreme Lord himself teaches the conditioned soul how he should be approached by devotional service. So this is a very important point, because sometimes we may think of, okay, the Supreme or rather Krishna, and I'll just worship them. But if we ignore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, who both appear as Krishna and Balaram in this age, and we think we can leapfrog over them and worship Radha Krishna directly, it's a bit of a farce, because unless we have the mercy and blessings of Lord Chaitanya, we can never really attain the pure love of Krishna. So that's why we must always worship Lord Chaitanya on our altars, and we'll have the divine viewing of the altar here. You'll have Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu on the left. So definitely we need to be grateful for them appearing in this age of Kali and being present right in front of us. So that is teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And in the last paragraph here, so people may worship Lord Krishna in different moods, right? One may be a devotee of the Lord and not worship Radharani. One may be a devotee and may worship Lord in very much a servitor mood. But the way we worship is a bit distinctively different, because Lord Chaitanya comes in our tradition. The Sankirtan movement inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya is a transcendental pastime of the Lord. By it, I simultaneously live to preach and popularize this movement in the material world. In the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda and Advaita are his expansions, and Gadadhar and Srivas are his internal and marginal potencies, respectively. So we see that when Lord Chaitanya appears, he appears with his associates. So Lord Chaitanya appears, he appears with Nityananda, and he appears with Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. So these are the 5 personalities known as the Panchatattva. And they popularize this Hare Krishna mantra. So the living entities are called marginal potency because they have 2 attitudes, namely to surrender unto Krishna and the tendency to be independent of him, to try for material enjoyment. So the individual soul has 2 tendencies, whether we want to serve Krishna or serve the material energy. So in this way, due to the propensity of a material enjoyment, the living entity becomes contaminated by the material world. When a living entity is dominated by a desire for material enjoyment and becomes entangled in material life, he is subjected to 3 modes of material existence. So it says that when a living entity serves Krishna, we can gain great relief. And then if we serve the material energy, we get kind of sucked down and bite down to it. So that is teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and that's what Srila Prabhupada says about that. So in this book, we read about, does anybody remember what are the 2 things, if you want to know somebody is supreme, what are the 2 things we should look at? What are 2 things I mentioned that we look at? Yes.
Their characters and their...
Character, okay, and yes, evidence, yeah. So 2 things, so perfect. So one is evidence, and how do you get evidence?
From the Vedic literatures?
From Vedic literatures, yeah. And how do you judge a person's quality?
Character.
So how would you do that?
From their activities.
Yeah, what their activities are, what their behaviors are. So as you mentioned that, we have to see the evidence. So let's look at some evidence. So let's go to Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 4, verse number 6, I believe. So just a translation here. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, by my internal energy I still appear every millennium in my original transcendental form. Okay? And then the next verse it says, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice or descendant of Bharat and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. And then the following verse is, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I appear millennium after millennium. So here we see that yuge, there are different incarnations of Lord Krishna and different categories of incarnations. There are the incarnations where there are the pastimes, the Leela avatars, and avatar means descending from a higher plane, so the spiritual plane to the material plane. So we have the Supreme who is unlimited, and one of his unlimited powers is to appear in front of us with a energy known as Yogamaya. So it's through that Yogamaya potency that people with material eyes or vision can see a spiritual being. Otherwise, with the material eyes, it's very difficult for us to see something spiritual. As it is, we know that we can see material things with our material senses, but for us to know that there's intelligence, ego, and mind, it's hard. We don't really see that, but we know they exist through inference. And then even more subtle than that is the spiritual soul. So we have the body, we have the mind, intelligence, ego, which is known as the subtle body, And beyond the subtle body is the spiritual body. So these are the three bodies that are within us. So here it's very difficult for us to see, but the Lord is so compassionate. When Krishna appears or Lord Chaitanya appears, they appear with the Yogamaya potency so that others can see a spiritual being. Otherwise, if we do not have the ability to see the Supreme in a form, in a spiritual form, in front of us, then that's a limitation we have that we impose on the Lord, which is not true. Right? So the Supreme Lord is unlimited. He has unlimited forms. One of his forms is formlessness, but he has unlimited forms, and he appears in those unlimited forms, and he makes sure that he's accessible to everybody. So that is from Bhagavad Gita, and so one of the last purports from this is the Lord says he incarnates himself in every millennium. This indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. So we see this, that the Lord, that age after age, so in the Vedic conception of time, time is cyclical, it's not linear. So you have your 4 ages, the age of purity, Satya Yuga, then you have Treta Yuga is the second age, Dwapar Yuga is the third age, and Kali Yuga, the age we're in, is the 4th age. So that means we have to have an incarnation in this age, and therefore, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is another literature, the incarnation in the age of Kali is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spread the worship of Krishna by Sankirtan movement, which is congregational chanting of the holy names, and spread Krishna consciousness throughout India. He predicted that this culture of Sankirtana would be broadcast all over the world, a prediction that's come true, from town to town, village to village. Lord Chaitanya, as the incarnation of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is described secretly, but not directly in confidential parts of the revealed scriptures. So that's the Upanishads, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam. The devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. The avatar of the Lord does not kill the miscreants, but delivers them by the causeless mercy. So Lord Chaitanya came, and he came to deliver people. He didn't came to pick up fights or cause a lot of destruction. He came to definitely deliver people from all kinds of ignorance or nescience they may be experiencing. So that is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is very much accepted by various sages and teachers such as Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Lord Chaitanya himself, Vishnu Swami, Madhvacharya. So these are sages that appeared 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 500 years ago, who accepted and praised the Bhagavad Gita. So that is the evidence that we have from Bhagavad Gita. So a question out to everybody. So there was one literature that was mentioned in the purports that I just read, where Lord Chaitanya is mentioned. Can anybody say which one that was? Srimad Bhagavatam. Perfect. So that'll be the next book we'll be taking evidence from and seeing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is it's like an encyclopedia, right? It comes in 18 different books, 12 cantos. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, verse chapter 5, verse 32. So here it says, in the age of Kali, that's where we are right now, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. So here it says that the personality of Godhead who constantly sings the name of Krishna, although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So here it says that in the age of Kali, those who are intelligent, they perform this congregational chanting, and Krishna appears in a form that is not blackish. He appears actually in a golden form. So this is a literary evidence. One, we have Bhagavad Gita, which says, Lord Krishna keeps on appearing. And one thing cool about the Srimad Bhagavatam is it has a lot of predictions. And a lot of the predictions come true. And some of the predictions are, in this day and age, people will be very deceitful. Relationships will be superficial. Businesses will be based on deceit. Priests may not be as saintly as we want them to be. So these are all symptoms of Kali, and the Bhagavatam very much predicts this. So here Lord Chaitanya is appearing, and then we see that the prayer is that, my dear Lord, you are the Mahapurusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I worship your lotus feet, which is the only eternal object of meditation. So those feet destroy the embarrassing conditions of the material life and freely award the greatest desire of the soul, the attainment of pure love of Godhead. My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the shelter of all holy places and of all saintly authorities in the line of devotional service, and are honored by powerful demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. My Lord, you are so kind that you willingly protect all those who simply bow down to you with respect. Thus you have mercifully relieved all your distress of your servants. In conclusion, my Lord, your lotus feet are actually the suitable boat for crossing over the ocean of birth and death, and therefore even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva seek shelter at your lotus feet. So we just observed a few weeks ago Shivaratri, so we see that even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma take a shelter at the feet of Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya is being addressed here. So here we see that Lord Chaitanya not only appears, but is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not different from Krishna. So therefore, if we take shelter of this form of Krishna, we attain to self-realization in a very easy way, because Lord Chaitanya is a suitable boat in this day and age that makes us go through the birth and death miseries that we face. And Lord Chaitanya also makes things easy. Like, we like things that are easy. We have conveniences in this day and age. We take advantage of having a well-stocked fridge. We may have a lot of conveniences that we have, such as we don't have to walk as much. We can take transit or take a car. So similarly, Lord Chaitanya made things convenient for us, that we simply have to chant, feast, and dance. That's really what it comes down to, because by chanting you control the tongue. By feasting on remnants that are offered to Krishna, it purifies us and controls the tongue. And we dance, we engage our body in Krishna's service in a very fun and jovial way. So that's what Bhagavatam says. And for anybody who may question the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam, so that's Bhagavatam, that's the third book that we went through, there are some evidences in the first canto that we know that have come true. So the first canto is very much the first part, where it predicts the different incarnations to appear, and one of them has obviously come true, and I'll be reading that the next book, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, but the first canto. So again, this is Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 3, verse 24, which is titled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So in this we see that how can we accept the Srimad Bhagavatam? It says, thus in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theists. So here we see that the Bhagavatam predicts the birth of Lord Buddha, but the Bhagavatam itself is 5,000 years old. So the Bhagavatam is 5,000 years old, Buddha appeared 2,500 years ago. So basically, 2,500 years it has predicted in advance the Lord Buddha appeared. So we see that the Bhagavatam is quite authoritative because it's written by Vyasadeva, who had the ability to see the past, present, and the future. So he predicted that as part of this. So that is Srimad Bhagavatam, an ancient text that's read by a lot of worshipped by sages, and it was an instruction of the Guru Narada to his disciple Vyasa to write about Sri Krishna. So that's why we see that. So that's the fourth book, and the last book we will take advice from our teacher, our primary teacher, which is Srila Prabhupada, on what he said about Lord Chaitanya. So let's take a read on that. So this is known as Shikshamrita, which is Srila Prabhupada's instructions to all of us. And in this, Srila Prabhupada says, that so as far as deity worship, so in Krishna consciousness we worship these spiritual forms of the Lord, Krishna and the Supreme Goddess Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Lord Jagannath, Baladeva, Subhadra. These are all different forms of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and we worship the deity. And so as far as the deity worship is concerned, for the present you can have a Guru Gauranga altar. So Gauranga is another name for Chaitanya. Gaura Anga, which literally means golden body. So Gaura means golden, Anga means body. Just like we may have heard of the Ashtanga yoga system, which means Asht, 8, Anga, in this case means limbs, 8 limbs or eightfold path. So Guru and Gauranga altar. So Guru meaning the spiritual master, so we honor the spiritual master, spiritual teachers, and then we go also honor Lord Chaitanya as the supreme. So as far as deity worship is concerned, for the present you can have a Guru Gauranga altar, and later on when there are more devotees and you have facility, Lord Jagannatha or Radha Krishna deity may be installed. Only initiated devotees may tend the deity or cook for him. For the present, you have a very attractive Guru Gauranga altar, so that would be very nice. So here what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say is, if we have Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, or you have the spiritual masters and Lord Chaitanya and worship that deity, it's a very simple worship. In this time and day and age when we have a lot of commitments, we don't have enough time, all we need to do is chant Hare Krishna, offer a little fruits or water to Lord Chaitanya and just dance. And if we somehow wake up late or we are away from town and we're not able to worship the deities all the time or have regulated offerings, they won't take offense to that. So the main thing is we have to worship without offenses. So with Lord Chaitanya, they're very merciful, and that's why we see that even in countries like Ukraine, they'll first they'll have a lot of home programs, and then they'll install Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And the worship is very simple, focus on just chanting Hare Krishna, dancing, having a good time, and having prasada together. And that's really Lord Chaitanya's mood. So essentially it comes down to his kirtan, and really relishing kirtan and going deeper and deeper in kirtan. So that is the formula we follow. And we also want to not only chant Hare Krishna, but also share it with others, so that everybody is going through a tough time or stumbling in this material world. We're able to give them a process in a way in which they can really appreciate and they can really jive it. It's not dry meditation, but it's very much fruitful because we are attracted to the spiritual vibration of Krishna in the form of his names. So that is Shikshamrita. So these are 5 books where I gave different evidences and anecdotes on Lord Chaitanya. So all we need to do is just chant, dance, and feast, and that's really our process, and share it with others, which is why we do engage in that type of mood in Krishna consciousness. And that's pretty much the main crux of what I was going to share with you today. And Lord Chaitanya gave us so many instructions, one of which is Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Krishna Karo Shiksha. So he gave this instruction to Nityananda and Haridas Thakur to always chant Krishna's vibration, Krishna's names, to worship Krishna, and to instruct others on the signs of Krishna. So he was solely focused on Krishna, solely focused on bhakti. An example is like if you're taking math, right? If you're in high school, the highest math subject, let's say it's calculus, right? So highest is calculus. But when you get to university, your math classes, the lowest may be calculus, and you'll go ahead and it's like multivariable calculus or differential equations. So similarly, in our tradition, in the Bhagavad Gita, the highest is surrender, right? But then where Lord Chaitanya's teachings begin is from, the basic is surrendering, and ultimately it goes into pure love of God. That's the ultimate goal. When you follow that pure love of Krishna, then automatically follow everything in the Bhagavad Gita at one shot. It's like an athlete, right? Like an athlete's working out 2 days of, 2-3 hours a day, and you come across with them and you're like, oh, did you get your 30 minutes of exercise today? And they'll be like, well, I work out 2 hours a day, like I'm getting way more than that, right? Similarly, a person who is following Lord Chaitanya automatically follows Bhagavatam, automatically follows Bhagavad Gita in one shot, because they're so absorbed in pure love of Krishna that automatically the regulative principles or chanting or remembering Krishna becomes very, very natural. And that's the whole point, is when we practice Krishna consciousness, we must do it in a way that is natural and authentic. Which means that if we are at a certain level of practice, we must do so not so much artificially, but do it in a way that's slow and steady, so that it keeps us going and keeps us sustaining. If we have a practice of Krishna consciousness that's not sustainable, then we may come to a point where our life gets so hectic that we can suddenly just kind of fall off the path. So we must be also very careful that we follow things in a very authentic and natural way. So, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So let's have time for any questions or clarifications or reflections. So reflection is basically what you were able to hear today, and you can just reflect that back that spoke to you. Or if you have a question about any subject matter, or you require any sort of clarifications based on what I spoke. We spoke on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as it was Gaura Purnima on the 6th of March. And it's really important for us to worship Lord Chaitanya. So if I were to ever give advice to somebody who says, well, I want to have worship at home, I would recommend having a picture of Lord Chaitanya and his 5 associates and the picture of the spiritual teachers, and that's all you need. It's very simple. You don't need more than that. You don't need to make things too complicated. And then we can focus on things that matter and not get our mind into all sorts of intricacies of worship that needs to be done. Because with Radha Krishna deity worship, it requires a high level standard, as we all know. So it's better that if you worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, we keep things simple. So, any questions or reflections? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat.
Just Dandavat, yes.
Actually, could you tell me, you said offering
Yeah.
the prasadam. Is it has to be every time in front of that deity, or can I do it wherever I cook? Like, let's say I'm not at home,
Yeah.
or I'm in rush.
Yes.
I have to get out, so.
Yeah, good question. So I would recommend that if you're at home, you can, whatever you cook in your kitchen, you offer.
From the
Right.
kitchen.
From the kitchen, well, whatever you cook in your kitchen, like whatever you cook,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whatever you cook according to Krishna's framework of Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam,
Yes.
leaf, flower, fruit, or water,
Yeah.
you can offer that, and that's fine. If you're on the road, then what I would do is I would just have a simple, I didn't bring that with me because I like to bring stuff, but I brought books today. But what you can do is you can do 2 things actually. One is you can actually take Srimad Bhagavatam like this, and you can offer your bhoga to Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada actually said you can do that because Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. Another thing you can do, because some people were like, these devotees are traveling outside and they're offering it to offering it to the deities outside, but prasadam is you offer it in the temple. Some devotees were like, and is this boga or is that bogus? So Prabhupada clarified that it's like, because you're out there and you're serving Lord Krishna, or whatever karma that's in that food gets burnt in the fire of Sankirtan. So you can offer it to like a Bhagavatam book, and it will be considered spiritual. So that's a practical thing. Another practical thing is if you want to worship, offer it to a picture, I would say have a picture of Lord Chaitanya, or have a picture of the Panchatattva, or Jagannath. Yeah, you can. Yeah. So if you like Lord Jagannath and Gaur Nitai are very merciful, so you can have a picture of them and have a small picture of the Guru Parampara.
Right.
So if you have that, you keep a small plate, you do your cooking and offering, and then have a little bell and just carry it in a nice cloth, So that's something I do. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This bead back here,
Pardon me?
his feedback, can I offer it to Lord Krishna?
Yeah, I mean, Lord Krishna is there in the form of the holy name. If you want to offer to Bibha, you can. I would recommend just having something where, because your beadbag can fall on the floor.
Yeah,
Because essentially-
the road, I on the road, I don't have nothing, just my feedback. What can I do?
Yes, yeah. So I said you can offer it as long as you're saying the main thing is you're saying the mantras, right? The mantras to offer to Krishna, so Krishna is there in the form of mantras. Yes, Jaya.
I would say taking this conversation to another level, spiritual seekers, mystics, yogis,
Mhm.
people who practice Krishna consciousness would actually offer their bhoga or offer whatever it is that they're offering to the Lord in their heart, because the Lord resides in our heart.
Mhm.
That's what.
So
Right.
instead of offering it to the feedback or offering it, but yes, and obviously we say that Srimad Bhagavatam is indifferent from the Lord himself.
Yeah.
But I think when you take it to another level, I would say that you can offer to the Lord that sits within your heart.
Right. So
Yeah,
we,
that's
super
we
soul.
see that we can when you're out and about, the main ingredient in your offering is the offering of love.
Yeah,
If
like
you can have the fanciest altar, you can make the fanciest preparation, you can offer it on plates that are made out of silver, right? But if you are doing it as a matter of just like, oh, this is a ritual I need to do, and you're not doing it without love, love is the main ingredient, right? And sometimes we follow rules and regulations are good to make sure we are reminded of Krishna, but we shouldn't follow rules and regulations to the point where we are just becoming rule and regulation conscious and not Krishna conscious. So we're conscious of this rule, this rule, we got to break fast at this time, we have to do this at that time, and then when it comes to love of Krishna, oh my God, I forgot about loving Krishna. So I think that becomes a problem. So I think we have to do it, which is why I mentioned we have to follow Krishna consciousness in a natural and authentic way, right? And that's the main thing, which means you have to be practical. At the same time, the essence is you have to love Krishna. So just like we may not think of Krishna present in the form of Bhagavatam, but it's good to do that because we ultimately don't want to, we ourselves are not God, as Prabhupada mentioned, and Lord Chaitanya was mentioning that. So we can worship a picture, we can offer bhoga to a book if needed. We can, carry a tulsi in a little Ziploc bag, or we can have a branch of a tulsi plant, or we can chant the mantra of tulsi. These are like 3 different ways in case you're traveling. Because it's impractical to think, like if you're going on pilgrimage and you're traveling on foot, you're not going to carry a tulsi pot with you. So these are kind of different ways where you can like make it very practical, but remember Krishna at the same time.
Even in our mind, we can offer.
Yes, so
is anybody?
yeah, but Yamuna Devi, I'll give you an example. She was away from the deity she was worshipping, and she was in another place, but she would always think that she's offering it even though she's away, she's offering it to the deity she's very attached to, and she's thinking that the deities are relishing them. But that's again a very high stage, right? We can't aspire to just jump ahead. I think it's good for us to practically start with just offering our food wherever we are. I think that's important. Yes.
That's what I was just going to kind of reinstate what you were saying about that. I was going to say that basically what you were saying is that you can offer anything or your bhoga in specifics to the Lord through any form, such as the Srimad Bhagavatam or deity worship.
Yes.
But it all leads to the same destination, which is giving Krishna that bhakti and that unconditional love.
Yeah, because ultimately Krishna doesn't really need the bhoga. Like Bhagavan means the owner of all opulences. So he has everything. But what Krishna needs is our love. And since we are part and parcel of Krishna, we can relate to him in so many wonderful ways. We can offer water, we can offer fruit, we can offer, some cooked grains, very simple offering. But we should do it with love. And whether it's a picture, whether it's a deity, whether it's a sacred book, these are all sacred aspects of Lord Krishna that we can offer to. And main thing is we also chant the mantras. We chant the mantra of the spiritual master, of the Panchatattva, and of Krishna. So, yes.
Bought out foods and that we offer.
So Prabhupada was very strict about this in Shikshamrita. He said that if it's things like raw foods, we can purchase for sure. But if you want to offer and cook for the deity, it's better done by a devotee. The reason why is because the consciousness in which you cook with is very important, right? So Prabhupada mentions in this book actually, Shikshamrita, he mentions that very thing, that when you offer food, it has to be done with bhakti, with cleanliness, with love, because when you're cooking, that consciousness transforms into the food in a very subtle way, right? So, but raw foods we can definitely take, or things that may have, like Prabhupada said, you can even offer lollipops, because lollipops is just sugar, right? But he says cooked grains, he said it should be cooked by devotees. Yeah, but if you have a person who gives you like fruits or something like that, then you can offer it to the Lord at home.
Samosas?
So yeah, samosas is, again, if it's cooked in house, Prabhupada cooked pakoras in house, or kachoris, it should be done by devotees.
Okay.
That's a recommendation for the deity. Yeah, because we follow certain standards for the deity. Okay. Yes. So here we have picture of Lord Chaitanya, Gaur Anga, so golden body. So Lord Chaitanya is here, and if we worship a picture of Lord Chaitanya and the lineage of spiritual masters, that's more than enough. We don't need to overcomplicate things in this day and age of Kali. If you're not able to maintain a high form of worship where we are at, no problem. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are very merciful and very compassionate, and they don't take offense. So if you're not able to do some things a certain day, they are very, very compassionate, they're very forgiving. Like we had Jagai and Madai took a clay pot and threw it at Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda was so compassionate that he said that, just forgive him. And because they're so forgiving and so compassionate, when we worship them, they make things easy for us. And again, in this day and age, we want things that are easy. It's very difficult for us to go into the forest and meditate and so forth, but the chanting of Hare Krishna, worshipping Lord Chaitanya and Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu will make us really attain the pure love of Krishna. But to think that, okay, let me ignore the spiritual teacher, let me ignore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Nityananda Prabhu, let me ignore the five personalities and go straight to Radha Krishna, it doesn't work very well that way, because you're ignoring the various personalities who lead you onto the path, and they give us a spiritual process. So, yeah, good question. Do you have a question? No? A question here? No, I guess not. Yes, last question.
I don't have Chaitanya's photo on my temple, but I've got, Laddu Gopal.
I would recommend getting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's picture on your altar. Must have. Like you come to my house, I don't have deities, by the way. I have pictures because I know I cannot worship Radha Krishna deities according to the standards that are required. So you come to my house, I just have pictures of the Lord. I travel a lot on work, so I'm not able to fulfill the commitments of offering every day and things like that. So I just have pictures, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, or the Panchatattva. Just have a picture of that and the Guru Parampara on your altar. We worship Radharani in our tradition. So if you look at all of our temples, there's Radha and Krishna, right? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna in the mood of Radharani. We look at, even if you have an altar of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, we have Subhadra. So having the feminine potency is very important to our tradition, especially to Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya propagated this tradition of pure love of Krishna that's experienced by Srimati Radharani and Krishna. So that's why if you can worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu and add that to your altar, I think that's more than enough. You'll be good in terms of worship and any sort of offering that you do, because they don't take offense. So, yes.
My challenge is that in my household, I'm inclined more towards,
Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So I just keep fruits and milk
Yes.
because I don't get any other cooperation from anybody.
Yeah, I think what you can do is if you give it possible, fruits and milk is good, but whatever grains you cook, no, that's a challenge. Even if a simple oatmeal or rice or, grains, I think.
I don't cook.
Oh, you don't cook. Okay. Well, another thing about Krishna consciousness is cooking is also an art of bhakti.
No, I am a chef, so I
He is
cook.
a chef, yeah.
Yeah.
But when I there are a lot of challenges.
There's a lot of challenges. Well, try, I mean, if you have a picture of Lord Chaitanya, maybe there'll be a difference.
I'm praying for that.
You're praying for that, yeah. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will work in mysterious ways. So maybe have a picture of Lord Chaitanya, have a picture of the Panchatattva, and let's hope that things improve to this extent where you can offer one. So, all right, thank you, and Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.